All right. Good evening. This is the October 15th, 2021 work session, and I will call it to order at 6:15. Do you need to do a roll call? No, we'll just fly right in.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Okay. This remains. Let's get to the, okay, so, looking at our work section packet, I think we're gonna have Commissioner Ward. Is that okay?
Mhm.
To start you?
Sure.
For you to, okay?
I can't get away from it.
Well,
No, it's
I'm
okay.
not making this as your whole
No.
responsibility, you
It's
being the
okay.
sole one.
It's okay. Are you ready for me to go?
Sure I am.
Okay, so what I wanted to do at the work session, and what Cheryl and I had talked about, was we've got the guidelines, but that's all they are. There's nothing other than guidelines. There's no chapter on how you apply. There's no chapter on how, or there's no discussion, or there's been no decision on how strong these are going to be. So are these just guidelines, or do we want to give them some teeth? If so, then we need to talk to the building code people, and I believe we need to talk to the fire chief regarding safety. If there's going to be teeth to this, there needs to be an application process. So, and who's going to deal with that? In terms of, do we recommend that the city hire, an entire staff, or, is that something that comes to this commission, or is it just something, who's going to monitor it? So there seems to be a lot of things that we need to discuss, and I thought what I'd like to see done, maybe this meeting, is to come up with some topics or chapters that really need to be added to the packet, and then we can take each one of those on individually, at a work session. So if we decide we want an application process, what is that going to look like, and can we have a work session to talk about that? And just make those decisions. And then, once we're at the end of that, I'm real happy to go and talk to the building code people. Maybe somebody else could go and talk to the Juno people to see what their application is, and bring back ideas so that we can then flesh out the process and the guidelines. And then, once we've done that, I see it as going to public hearings. We need to go to planning and zoning. We need to open it up to the public. We need to open it up to the business owners. Anyway, that was my idea. So perhaps at this session, we could just brainstorm things we think need to be in this that are not.
Okay, sounds good. I submitted a memo to Brenda with just ideas.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's a good place to start.
And that's on page 2.
That's a good place to start.
So, I personally would like to have a copy of the clerk's notes that they take, just to jog their memory, so that we can do the same for me, the chair, and any other commissioner that would like to see, would like to receive a copy of the notes as well. And or maybe one of we commissioners that's really, multitask oriented, that's able to do that. I am not. If I'm running something, listening, talking.
You can't run it and take
I'm-
notes.
I can't take notes. So that's also an idea. And this is especially important during the work session. The clerk, there's no minutes, so the clerk has no reason to take notes for what we're doing. So that would fall to one of us to do if we wanted that. And then Commissioner Ward already hit on a few of these things. And at this point, we're leaving the CLG grant project for the historic walking tour, and we're diving right into another very time-consuming, project, and that's the historic overlay standards and guidelines. And so in talking with Commissioner Ward, we thought about having different pages tucked in that will become, they'll be developed as we work through this. So like she was speaking of an application process. We would have that tucked in. Maybe we'll do this tonight. We'll talk about, you know, what that should look like, what that should be. Yes. A public advocate group. And that would be bringing on members of the public who would like to be involved in this project. And then they would, you know, from start to finish if they choose. Enforcement, that's a whole other one. Another tuck page in for enforcement and the ideas that we come up with for that. And Commissioner Benoit has suggested many times that it would be great if we could, you know, create a grant library or some, you know, some source where people can go who are interested in historic restoration when they're, you know, updating their buildings or you know, remodeling their buildings.
That was actually Commissioner Ward's idea.
Yes.
She's number
Well,
one.
I know, I
I know.
just said that.
It's all right.
At least I
I
meant
thought
to.
you were giving me credit for.
No, I was looking at you while I was speaking, sorry. The Jesse Lee home is something that I think we need to assert ourselves into. There's a very well-defined plan that's already been presented to council. I think that it would be really beneficial for us, because it is our job to preserve history in this town, to maybe be a part of a gazebo or something on the property with the storyboards, like what we've already done with the historic walking tour, you know, with pictures and stories and facts about the Jesse Lee home and what it meant to our community and our state. Let's see. And then, oh yes, this is a big one, and this is going to fall to. I do read the city calendars, their meeting calendars, and I missed this. Apparently, it came out on the news, the Resurrection Bay Historical Society newsletter. And that is the submarine, the USS Alaska. That group came and actually gave a presentation to council, but we didn't know anything about it. And we were hoping that we would be involved in working with.
Well, Jim Pemberton had indicated he would, because Jackie had given us a heads up, and we had talked to Jim, and he had said he was interested in liaisoning with the group in Anchorage. Evidently, it's
Right,
a group
but
in Anchorage.
We all missed it.
Yep.
Our commission missed it. It's something that's important enough for us to be involved in, so I didn't see this on the calendar, and that doesn't mean it wasn't there. So maybe we have a person appointed to Resurrection Bay Historic Society, because in some things I think we're going to partner. We need to.
I liaison with them.
Great.
That's why I read their newsletter.
Okay, great. But the newsletter, what it did was it gave the report after the fact. And what our commission needs to know is before the fact.
Right, but the Resurrection Bay people only heard about it after the fact as well.
Oh,
It was in their newsletter.
Oh,
That's
they-
where I
So-
saw it.
Maybe because it was a submarine, it just popped up.
what now, what?
Maybe because it was a submarine, it just popped up.
So, you know, it was just something that slid between the cracks, and so this group is drumming up, you're trying to drum up interest in Seward because they want to put together a memorial, the USS Alaska. It's a nuclear sub, and this is their home port. It's going to be decommissioned. So we had talked about it, a few months ago,
Yeah,
when it had
last
been
spring.
brought to our attention, and Jim Pemberton said he would be interested, but again, we didn't have any really contacts, and I just kind of noticed this group is getting active, so Just, I mean, that's my only thought, is the group in Anchorage, and they evidently have some money.
Yeah,
Evidently have quite a few bucks. So I thought it would be time to either have Jim step up and contact them. I don't know who this group is. I'm sure it must be easy to find out who they are.
well, maybe Resurrection Bay Historical Society, or maybe it's council notes, look into a council minutes or
Well, Jackie,
packet.
I gave a bunch of information to Jim. Jackie had given me some stuff that she had picked up from, Jackie Wild,
Yeah,
that she had picked up from this group. And so I handed it off, and it was about the use, that picture of the submarine, kind of nice stuff.
and Commissioner Pemberton has that?
Mhm.
Okay, well,
But I hadn't heard anything, and so it just caught my eye when I read the Resurrection Bay newsletter. It just caught my eye that they commented on it. They weren't involved, they just knew about it and commented. So it got my attention because we were already aware of the project.
Well, it's an exciting, it's an exciting thing, I think, for our community, and I definitely don't want it to fall through the cracks. I want our commission to be involved in it.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
Clerk Baloo.
I'll just say that they did come and do a presentation to council, and that's the first time that,
Anybody heard of it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they came and said, this is what we want to do, and we want to use the part of the waterfront campground for it, for the location, and council said that's not going to happen.
Right.
So maybe another location in
Yeah.
town can be
Right,
found.
it
Yeah.
needs to be discussed. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jackie Wild was aware of it, and she had passed it along, and again, that's last spring we were talking about it.
Thank you, Clerk Baloo, for
That's super.
letting us know that.
That's the only-
Council is not closed, they're just saying not that location.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
But-
there's a whole lot of discussion that needs to happen before.
Well, absolutely, but in that they came, and they made this presentation, is there contact information available from their
Yeah,
presentation?
Yeah, there is
Great.
contact information, but the ball's in their court right now.
But it wouldn't hurt if one of us contacted them.
Liaison with them, or just say, look, we're
Yeah.
happy to work with you.
Yeah, okay.
So where would we go? Would we go to, it's been in the last couple months, right? And just look at
Yes.
the city packets, right?
Right.
To find it, okay.
Well, that was just
I'll do
something that I know we had talked about it, and I saw it in that newsletter. So. It's always nice when things get printed out and people actually read them.
Okay. So that's what I had put in. Now, I also have from Doreen Lorenz again. She has submitted things from what they're doing in Juneau, and I thought it worthwhile to include these because they're, they have application process and we don't have anything yet. So whatever can add to what we're doing and maybe, help us to not have to reinvent the wheel ourselves. I thought.
Well, do we want to applicate? See, I think there's just some general discussion that needs to be happened before we get to specifics.
Yes,
So how do we want it, do we want historic guidelines for downtown to protect those buildings? And if
Yes.
so, what is that going to look like? What would be the process? I mean, I think we've got to kind of start brainstorming some ideas about what we think that process would look like. Or do we make it kind of purely voluntarily? Voluntary. So somebody wants to do work on, a building. An example is I believe Mr. Wells is planning to upgrade his building. He's bought the whole building and he wants to return it to a more historic look. Where would you start with us?
Why didn't we do this before sewer trading turned out the way it looks now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be real nice. That's the point. That's the point, Donna, to try and prevent that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea because I'm sure if people want to restore, they could probably have questions. Like, if I wanted this to look historically accurate or fit into the historic viewscape of the street, what should I do? Because they probably don't know and they could probably use some help. It's a good question if they're like, I really want to paint my how are my building fluorescent psychedelic green and purple in the middle of the historic district, then what?
Well, there's nothing to stop them now.
Right.
No.
But
But
the
that's the
other-
reason for doing
Yeah, but
this.
the other thing is, I talked at length with the former building code person, and he struggled a little bit with the modern code being applied to older buildings. So that's one of the reasons it would be nice to talk to maybe the building code person to see what their requirements are, what would make their job easier. I mean, you've got to deal differently with Brown and Hopkins than you do with, you know, a more modern building. The other thing that I worry about is, you know, the east side is burned. It burned down in the 40s.
Right.
That other side, those buildings share walls. So that's one of the reasons I was talking about the safety codes. You know, what does the fire chief feel would be necessary to protect those buildings from a safety code point of view?
And what do they do in Juneau where they apparently have gotten a lot further in the process than us, and they have historic buildings, they probably run into this situation with the building codes and how do you deal with historic
Well,
buildings?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a chapter, we did not delve into that. We just looked at guidelines. Here's the kinds of things you need to be aware of if you're going to remodel a historic property. But that's all Iris and I did.
Yeah.
So,
First of all, what's been done already is great.
mhm.
The two things of building code and historic character do not need to be mutually exclusive.
No.
They can be separate things. I'll use my own house as an example. In order for me to meet the guidelines as set forth by the National Register, because we're a National Register property, I have certain things that I have to do. That has nothing to do with building code. I still have to let the building code guy come over and go, you've got to do this and that in order for us to pass a lodging inspection. So they're two separate things, right?
No, they're
So-
not necessarily. I talked to Stefan, and he wants a fire sprinkler system in Brown and Hopkins. And I said,
Right.
I said, that's not very historic, and he laid it out for me this way. He said, if you want to use it for lodging, and you have to go by the safety code, then you're gonna need certain doors, you're gonna need certain things in place that are required. If you put a sprinkler system in, then you can keep more of the historic accoutrements. You can keep the historic doors, you can keep, because you have
Gotcha.
made that adjustment. So there are some things that he was very concerned about, and things that he wanted to see happen with the buildings, but, you know, there wasn't really much for him to work on. That's why I'd really like to see if the building folks would like, what is it would make their job easier and protect the buildings? I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I don't think I explained myself well. What I'm saying is, as far as what we would come up with as Historic Preservation Commission, we could say, let's say you're new to town or you're not new to town and you're buying a building. These are the things that we're requiring or asking from a historic preservation standpoint. This does not mean that we know code. You still need to talk to the code guys.
Right.
Like, that's a separate thing, because we can never legislate that, and that's always going to change. So even if we said in this document what code was, if it changes a year from now, then our document becomes.
Well, then the document
Yeah.
gets updated.
So I think part of the challenge that we have in the whole overlay will be simply the point that people do not have the knowledge, and they think, just like they do about National Register, oh, if I do this, if I go historic or whatever, it's going to be so onerous that I can't do it.
Right.
And so you create a document that says, these are recommendations, this is what we're asking of you, however, you still got to meet all the building code things and all this, and the two should work hand in hand. You're right, I never thought about that from a
I spent a good time
I
talking
never thought
with
about
Mr.
that from that
Nielsen.
standpoint. But we need to remove some fear. So for example, for a similar thing when it comes to like National Register, for example, people think, well, I don't want to do it because I've got this side window and I've got this thing. Well, National Register says all they care about is the front facade, what everyone can see from the street. So I've tried to explain that to people. I'm like, if you've got a window that's so bad on the side that you've got to fix and you've got to put a new modern thing so you don't let water into your house, that doesn't mean you can't be a National Register property. So if this document can start from the premise of here are some recommendations, however, there are some obligations as well, then it probably then it might be received well, because people get afraid of it because they have misinformation.
And it's always, I mean, historic buildings, and you and I both know that, that it is gonna be expensive. There's
It is
not a
gonna
whole
be
lot of way
expensive.
around that. They're not as cheap as more modern building. So what you're saying is to not make it enforceable then, it's just I mean, and that's a discussion we need to have. What is the pleasure of the commission? Is it going to be something that we're going to have enforcement? And if there's enforcement, how is that, what does that look like?
But also, like you said, if it's more expensive to do it, you don't want that to scare everyone away. That's one of the reasons you talked about having
Grant.
this grant library. Because ultimately, if it's gonna cost you so much to do something to fix your house, whether it's historic or not, but you can get a grant because your house is historic.
Because your house is
It's
historic.
probably
Exactly.
cheaper for you in the long run,
I'm
so
gonna give you
really.
a real life example
it
of
could
something
be.
that worked out pretty well, I think, and that is the house that's right next to Home Brew Alley.
Oh, right.
That
mhm.
big house. I was just talking to the guy when we were putting the sign up, and he said that when he came in there, he got kind of a hard time because he had to take down an old house that was there, but he said it was so thick and black mold and mushrooms and stuff that were growing downstairs, there was no way to salvage this home. However, what he built, well, it's rather large stuff, kind of looks like it could have been built in the 40s or 50s. It's that style. But no one told him. That's incidental. He could have built a steel, glass, red, green,
Yeah,
purple
yeah.
building there, and we would have had no, but you got lucky because he built something that actually looks pretty good in character. So if we can provide a framework by which people do typically build something that kind of looks in character, that's a win. As opposed to building something crazy which does not even look even, because I'm reading through all this, I love this standards, but you look at it of things that stick out like a sore thumb. Isn't that what we're trying to avoid, is really things sticking out like a sore
Right.
thumb?
You don't want it
initially?
to look like Disneyland, we're not looking at
We
Disneyland.
want them to look like they're pretty close to, what things used to look like. But also to consider the neighborhood too. Because if you've got historic buildings around you, you're part of the whole view of what everyone sees. It's not just about you. You have to kind of fit in with the bigger picture too.
And that's one of the things I've noticed with some of the new builds as you come into town. I think Jenna Peterson and her husband has done a really good job. There's a Seward style, and they've built several properties that really emphasize that Seward style.
Well, we got lucky, right?
Where there's no,
Yeah.
I mean, they just did it because they're really, they're Seward people. So again, I think that's probably one of the first things to decide as a group is how enforceable do we want this, or do we just want them as guidelines? Then there's no application process. It's just somebody buys a building and this gets included in their building stuff.
How about defining a Seward style and saying, starting with the preservation plan and the this and the that, we're trying to create a community that attracts people, blah, 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 and has a certain style.
Right.
I mean, what about applying that?
Well,
Instead of it being so scary that it's historic guidelines, it scares people, right?
if that's what you'd like to do, I'm fine with that.
I'm not saying I would.
Somebody
That
could
was a-
write that.
That was an if statement. That was
We're
an if
brainstorming.
statement.
No, I understand that, but
Because I like what you said.
I
That
think
someone's
there is a
building
big
a Seward
the
style.
the historic style and the Seward style are probably one and the same when it comes right down to it.
it's just, there's no, but they did that because they're Seward people. So, I mean, we don't have to do any of this.
What would feel like success for a historic overlay? If a year from now, or whenever when you did it, and it started being applied, what would feel like success? What would the whole thing feel like success?
That you would get buildings to me, like what East Casa Grande is doing. Buildings that are getting painted, buildings that are getting fixed up, buildings, or even, houses that should have been torn down or look like they might. I don't know what they're doing with that red house, John's house.
On Third?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it today too. I was
You've
like,
taken
what's
the
going on?
windows out. But anyway, I would hope that they preserve that. There was one of the houses that's on the walking tour, the red one, had some real structural issues over the winter or over the summer. And I've noticed that when I drive back and forth at Third, they've repaired that wall. It looks like they fixed the stucco.
And there's like 4 other houses been painted. And Bruce Jaffa is putting new cedar shingles on his place today. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it feels good.
It feels like all these people on the tour are like, oh, I better fix up my place,
Right.
these
Yeah.
people are gonna come and look.
So, you know, I don't know the answer to that.
But maybe that's part of the start is what a success looks like, because that would be interesting. I don't know if that's extraneous or not. That's, what are we trying to get to? What's the end goal? Like, if they're asking the questions, what should we do, but what's the end goal?
No more Petro Marine buildings downtown.
So eloquently said.
Speaking of the Petro Marine building downtown, as you all know, I'm sure, the property next to the old Sully building has been sold. And Commissioner Ward had a great idea, which was.
No, it was shared idea.
Okay. There's an idea where we could contact them and show them, you know, have hand in hand, you know, pictures of what the old arcade building looked like. Because it kind of, what they're wanting to do kind of sounds pretty similar to what the arcade building was.
I looked at planning and zoning, and it was essentially, it's just, they want to put in a 3-story building. I think the impression I got was they want to make it kind of industrial. I would suspect a lot like Brewing Company, and which would be fine. And they want to make it a 3-story building with condos at the top. And the first thing that I thought of was just like the original arcade building that Harry Hogan built.
It was called the Honeymoon.
It was, yeah,
What
they had,
is it?
they had
Something
the
like the Palace of
apartments
Love or
upstairs,
something?
Yeah.
offices in the middle, and shops at the bottom, and they called it the Honeymoon Palace because so many honeymooning couples lived upstairs. It was the Palace of Love, is what they called the old arcade building. So one of the things I thought is from reading the planning and zoning information, the people that are building it look like they want to really do right by the history of Seward. They recognize the plot. And I thought it would be really fun to get pictures. We talked about it a little bit, to get some big black and white photos. We could help them do that, decorate their lobby. If they were interested, it would just be an offer to make the building as historic as possible. But a 3-story building with condos on the top, that's what was there before the original arcade burnt down.
I
Yeah.
did have
But maybe
an email, a request from the city, from Courtney, I think her name is, I forget her last name.
Yeah, Courtney,
She
was
was
community development.
Contacted me to see, do you have any pictures of the old building that was there? And
Yeah.
I said, if you're talking about the old, the arcade, I said, I personally don't have any. And I did look online for the Seward Community Library Association, all the archives to see if I could
There's
find
pictures
one.
of it in the, that National Park book.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know. So
Yeah.
basically, I looked for her, and I said I didn't have any, but I thought if she contacted Resurrection Bay Historical Society or Seward Community Library Association, there's probably pictures someplace in their records where it could
The
be
National
provided.
Park
And it-
building has a beautiful picture of the
Oh,
original
okay.
arcade building, that
That's good
National
to
Park
know.
book.
Again, if they're wanting to do it in kind of an historical,
Mhm.
it's just the exterior facing the main street that we would like to see.
But what they're
with the hung
putting there was-
windows.
What they're
You
putting
know?
there is really appropriate.
So
Yeah.
maybe the thing would be, you know, if
That's why I
the
didn't attend
shape,
planning and zoning.
if the shape and stuff, and kind of like almost the uses are similar to before.
But it
might
would just be a
come down
courtesy.
to like what kind of materials to use in the outside and the colors and stuff that could help it.
We would just
Look more
offer
historical.
assistance if they were
Yeah.
interested, that was all.
Yeah.
Because it is right in the center. A lot of this information I found out because, you know, Iris is within how many, you have to be, everybody who's within the area
Has to be
gets notified.
Yeah,
That old
That's why I
arcade
found out.
building, from what I remember, was kind of like an iconic building, like anyone who came to Seward by ship.
Mhm.
It was like the thing
The
that
first thing they
welcomed
saw.
people and what they associated with Seward.
Yeah, and then it
So
burnt
it's
down.
important.
It burnt
Yeah,
down and
it
then they
was.
put a cinder block ugly building up in its place that didn't last very long. So there's been 2 buildings on that lot. But that was just one of the ideas we had, is that we would, you know, they sounded like they were really interested in doing some historic stuff. And, you know, we didn't want to impact, the building is exactly what would have been put there originally anyway. But that we would offer any assistance if they were interested. I didn't want to put myself in a position of being where I didn't want to be,
Are they
or where
from
they
out-
didn't want me
Are they from out of state?
to be.
Are they from out of state?
No, they're from Anchorage. It's a local, you know, it's an Anchorage group. So anyway, but, you know, the historic overlay, when I did a couple of presentations, it got a lot of interest, so people were real interested in it. But when you, I mean, I think the guidelines are really worthy, and you can always use them if somebody's interested, but, you know, if they don't want to, if they want to put a big modern building, you know, where Brown and Hawkins is, there's nothing we can do to stop them.
Which is where enforcement comes in, as
Mhm.
opposed to just suggestions.
Right.
But it would, but just a thought, what we're doing now with like the historic walking tour is something that can help bring economic benefit to this town. It attracts tourism, historic preservation attracts tourists, it brings money into town. All these businesses down here, I'm sure, will appreciate that. They may not realize it now, but as more business comes to town because of something like this, they're gonna appreciate it more later. So I would assume that any business, anybody who's gonna build something downtown in the main business district is of course interested in as much business as possible. So if you have something that can help increase your business, why not consider it? How that could be beneficial to you.
Yeah, good point.
Well, but I always say the money is the bottom line. If it's gonna cost me, it's gonna cost me out of my pocket, then I'm gonna be a little bit more resistant, which I think is
Unless you-
Congi's point.
Yeah.
Unless you can get a grant.
One
Unless,
thing,
and that's why I thought a grant library, because the one thing, you know, Petro Marine cannot get a grant,
yeah.
but Brown and Hawkins can, Cable House can.
One thing I've learned being an interior designer is you don't have to spend a lot of money to make something look good. The simplest thing can be the most beautiful. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It's just a matter of being creative and thinking about all the possibilities. So trying to make something look better or more historic, I don't think has to cost more money. I think it just has, you just have to figure out what your possibilities are and how you can make it work.
Well,
Yeah, like you're gonna have windows anyway. So why not consider having the hung windows that would match the history that's already there?
well, that was
You know?
that was a choice Eric and I made. We looked at it, and we said this looked historic. We didn't have to. We took out a big picture window that was not very historic, and put in a much smaller window. I mean, you know, we get enough light, but that's a choice that we made because we bought a historic house going into it, knowing that we were going to do that. We bought the house knowing that, but we're not trying to make money either.
No.
You know, I'm not trying to earn a living, which I think makes a difference. When the building has to be a money earner.
Well, historically, with just hung windows on the front, any business can continue to make money. Maybe they'll even make more money because people will feel better about going into
But
something
if one
that's
window
uniform.
costs $250 and the other one costs $500, I'm going for the $250.
Well, it depends.
Windows are expensive.
Yeah,
That's why the grant library is.
That's exactly,
yes,
to make up that shortfall.
yeah.
So it's in the owner's interest to do it properly.
So where's the money coming from that has the grants?
I think we have to build a library. That was, my idea was to just get a whole lot of grants and have them, and if somebody says, I want to remodel my building, then we start looking through the grants.
So like we have
And-
the state has a
Yeah.
grant, and Sue is
KMTA.
aware of, yeah.
The KMTA,
Yes,
um,
so there's a lot of organizations that do give out grants.
I know Passenger Depot got a $10,000 grant from KMTA. But the point being is that, again, if you have a grant library, you know, I'm not saying we're gonna write the grant.
Right.
You know, if that's the case, then there needs to be a staff person who can, you know, a grant writer. I'm happy to do some of it, but, you know, I'm not gonna do it full-time.
I think you can provide the information. I gave you a similar situation. The Alaska Youth Orchestras has really been trying to build up their organization by being a resource for kids to remain musicians throughout their lives and so on. And so they have created a list of resources on their website in the last 2 years, which is like summer camps and scholarships and university scholarships and all these type of things that they never had before in their previous 30 or 40 years of
Right.
existence. because kids see a benefit to, oh yeah, I should do music because it's not just good on my resume, but I could get a scholarship to college, I could go to these really cool camps, I could have somebody help pay for my instrument, I could do all these things, and they don't do it, they don't administer it, they
Right.
don't write them. But they're like, here's the hot links, and they go on their webpage, on their Facebook, and they say, this week, you know, if you're interested, you should apply for this grant, for this summer camp, or this college, or this. So you can just promote,
Yeah.
but I don't,
And the
I
other
would
thing is,
definitely
once
want-
you have a grant done, then you use it as a template for a future grant.
That's
So,
right. Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
we can provide that. These have been successful grants. Use this as a model.
that's a great idea. It's public knowledge, anyway, it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, the
all,
whole grant library is an awesome idea.
yeah. Well, that, I mean, it's, you know, if money is the problem, then how do you make it easier for people to value old buildings that are gonna cost you?
And that's
You
how
know.
I see it, is like the grant library is basically us doing the research to go find out what's available and kind of summarizing, here's all the things you can get with the hot links where they can go and say, if you need to replace all your windows, or you need to do this or do that, check out these types of grants.
And here's a
Because people
template,
usually don't know where to start, but if we give them the place to start.
and here's a
Little
template that
guidance.
shows you how to fill that particular grant in.
Yeah.
Here's the
That's a
kinds of
great
things.
idea. Scholarships to some of the, there's grant things, there's just like even grant program stuff, you can take $50 class or whatever,
Mhm.
scholarship. But you had a great idea in that, when you were talking to KMTA, and they were looking at a thing, like they were looking at a bigger scope of, you know, a city setting up kind of historic district or something, and then they would look at giving like a large chunk of money, remember that?
Right.
They were talking like $500,000.
Yeah, yeah,
So that all these
Sitka.
people could, so that
Was
all
it-
these people could do stuff.
yeah,
They
that
were
they
looking
had
at larger
Sitka,
grants.
got like a $300,000 grant, and they couldn't figure out how to spend it or have anybody to administer it, so they gave it back. I know, and I was shocked,
That's terrible.
but it was a pretty massive grant, that's what got my attention. So, anyway, those are kind of the ideas, and, but again, you know, I think, you know, the basic thing is, do we want to make it enforceable, or is it just something we do? Because if it's just something that's available to the general public who want to purchase, or who have purchased a historic building, then we can just make copies of this and hand it out and say, here you are. This is what, if you want to restore your building, these are some suggestions. Then we're done. Do we want to designate downtown? See, that, the whole idea of the historic overlay was to designate a certain section that had historic buildings, and then within that section, these grants, these guidelines would apply. That was the whole point originally.
I feel like there used to be a map in here that had like a historic
Yeah.
district.
Well, I think we've used that in this,
It's in here.
it's in here.
I think it's in the back.
Yeah. But if we, I mean, basically, these are just really nice guidelines, so that if you have a
Yeah, they are.
historic building anywhere in Seward, you can follow these whether you know, if you want to or not.
I thought what I saw there was very easy to interpret, and that's important. The
You know, then we're
windows
done.
and
We
the
can
doors
just
and the-
pretty this up and that's it. That's why I
Well,
brought it back
maybe
to
we
the
should
commission,
con-
because
maybe
I
we
can't
should-
make those decisions.
Maybe we should consider the pros and the cons of just guidelines, or doing something a little bit more
Enforceable.
enforceable, and see, and after we look at those pros and cons, then we could decide.
I think with the historic downtown overlay within that, I think we do need to have enforceable,
But that was the question.
Guidelines.
That's the
you know.
question. Which is what the original
then-
premise was,
Right.
was downtown
And as far
only.
as what burned in 1941, all those buildings now are historic in their own right.
Right.
So, and some of them have put on a facade that does look like it fits right in.
Well, you know, one of the things I found, the Hale House is the one that's had some structural issues. As I'm just looking at pictures, as I'm going through, I was looking for something in here, because, no, that's, there is a definition in here where you have to decide, I can't remember, I haven't read it in a long time. But you have to decide your your vintage. But within that, you know, like I say, what I said was, you know, I'm not trying to turn downtown into all Brown and Hawkins. I would be real upset if somebody took away the neon of Thorns,
Well, yeah,
because that's, you know, but there's a term for that where it's a 50-year span. And then, you know, so you're not trying to make every building look like Brown and Hawkins. You preserve it as it is. Now,
Yes.
if somebody wanted to take the building back to a different, you know, to a previous look, which is what Hugh and Iris did. I mean, Brown and Hawkins didn't look like that 30 years ago.
right, right.
Yeah, but every building, like Brown and Hawkins was built on a certain date, which isn't the same date as Thorns or whatever. I mean, each building has its own.
Right, well, that,
look
there's a
and
name for
shape.
that. I was just looking for the
It's like
terminology.
historic integrity for that time.
Exactly,
Period of significance.
yes, there you go.
Period of significance. And within downtown, there's different buildings that have different time frames. So you're not gonna take one building and turn it back. So it's not Disneyland.
Right,
But that's not the point. The point is, but when you're making when you're making changes to the front of the building, you take historic, like if you look at this picture, it's not, but this is this is Brown and Hawkins.
yeah.
And Brown and Hawkins,
What page are you on?
it doesn't have numbers,
Oh.
but it's just right here, I can show it to you.
All right. Yes,
See, that's what Brown and Hawkins look like. Hugh and Iris made a choice to bring it back.
Yeah, because they had changed the historic integrity and
Right.
done something to make it modern for the 40s.
Right,
Whatever.
and so that's what this would be, is, you know, if you're going to make choices depending on what period of significance your building is, then you make choices. This gives you some of those options. Or you knock it down and put up Petro Marine, you know, lime green. You have that choice.
yeah, I think we should come up with something enforceable.
But the idea,
Yes,
that
sir.
would be the idea, I know that's downtown in particular was going to be not, yeah, that would be something that would be protected, so that you couldn't just knock something down.
I would propose, this is one alternative, a staged process where you put something else to recommendation and later it has teeth in it. The pros and the cons of that, the pros are that you could get this out relatively soon, and as building is happening, you'd be providing some guidelines to people. The cons of doing something completely enforceable, which I'm not against and I will support, is that then you're talking public hearings, planning and zoning and all kinds of stuff, and you're gonna be sitting talking about this 2 years from now.
Yep.
This, we could have out in a few months, and people moving to town would say, what are the guidelines? I'm just curious. Like when I moved here and I bought the cable house, I had no idea, no one told me anything, I did whatever I want. I did bring it back to like it looked, but I didn't have to. So I would look at it, I would say, oh gosh, there's a Seward look, and I should try to stay within this storefront, and I should try to do these with these windows and things. And this is, and you could work hand in hand with zoning or whatever, where zoning would say, when people come and say, well, what do I have to do? And they say, well, let me talk about what you have to do, but also let me hand you this packet, which are recommendations from
Maybe that's what the building people do.
From
Or
us.
Anybody. I mean, I don't know what the process, even if you
I don't
knock a
know.
building down now
But-
and want to rebuild.
But this could be 3 months or 6 months, and if it's an enforceable thing, I'm telling you, 2 years from now, we'll still be sitting here talking about it,
Arguing about it.
arguing about it, and P&Z will be fighting us every step of the way because it creates more work for them. I'm not dogging P&Z, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it creates a lot more work for them.
Well, they have a lot of other things on their plate. Is this something they want to deal with?
So you can always what happens, people, you know, all these places are getting painted and shingles are going up and all this stuff's happening since we started this tour. So now you start doing something and Stewart starts really getting its own identity, and now you start getting the positive peer pressure where say, wait a minute, I think something's being built next door to me in the next 6 months that really doesn't look like the Stewart look, and I have an opinion about it.
An
That's just-
educated one because they.
That's just my,
Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents.
The other thing,
Worth the-
just, the only thing, when Eric and I were first dealing with our house, we had to deal with, what was her name, Donna
Glenn's.
She was at community development, and so we ran some things by her in community development. Would this be something that they would hand out?
That makes sense.
You know, I'm trying to think of who you could, I mean, you know, people could, it's not really the purview of the fire department, although safety, because safety is their issue. It's not really the building code people. So if you were a Seward, you know, you're new to Seward, if Eric and I came in and we bought that house, now we want to kind of figure out what we're going to do with it, who do we go to? We went to community development because Donna, you know, we had to talk to her about, because, you know, being in the old part of town, of course, part of our house is in the city easement. So she had jurisdiction over that. And so we worked with her. Would this be a place that they just hand it out for informational purposes to anybody that requests one?
And you put it on the Facebook page, and you just make it.
I was just envisioning something like the Seward look, and then you have like different sections, like 1905 to 1915, this is the look. And then the next 10-year span, which is basically like, what does your windows basically look like, or your doors, or the siding, or the colors, this stuff, so that a person's like, well, I know my house is built in, then I can look and see generally, these are the kind of things that would be the look that would be appropriate for my period of historical
That's
significance.
a good idea, good idea. One of the things.
But I'm just trying to think simply, like, what, if you came and you had a house, you knew it was built in 1925, you're gonna do some stuff, what do you wanna know? Like, I have to fix this window and I have to paint it. What kind of window should I put in and what color paint should I use? What are my options? That's where I'd go. And if I had something simple that would tell me that, I'd be happy to look at it.
So, my first suggestion is that this is thick, and I mean, I thumbed through it. I would like to suggest that we each take time and go through this on our own and think of what part we would personally like to commit, because each of us are going to be involved in this process. It's not going to be any one person. And then, you know, we're going to come together at our work sessions and we're going to process the ideas and the questions and the what ifs together. And then I don't know what part I would play. I haven't even read this yet to figure out what personal strength I have, as an example. Mary Ann, Sue, I mean, if we each commit to one part of it and then we come together during work sessions, which, by the way, I think we need to be willing to have more than just our once a month work session. Like maybe we have 2 work sessions a month to complete this. What I don't want to see happen is what's happened with the CLG Historic Walking Tour, where that was all consuming. Because there's other things like this Jesse Lee Memorial. There's other things that we need to be involved in at the same time, and we cannot just have one thing that we're dealing with. That's kind of my idea.
I think the guidelines have been looked at. Mary Ann put a lot of effort into them. I know there's still some photos that need to be done, but I'm not necessarily sure how much more needs to happen. I mean, I don't know, is this something we would be happy to put out?
You mean as is right now?
Yeah.
I like it. I was gonna make a joke at the beginning. I was like, why don't we just be a sub-company of the Juno whatever? I really like what they have. I mean,
What
like,
they
I don't
gave
know.
us-
I
they
looked
gave
at,
us
read the whole
permission.
thing, and I was like,
They gave us
combination of
permission.
Well, that's, the point being is I think it's fairly thorough.
it's very.
And so
thorough.
if this is something that's publishable, or something that would be made available to anybody who wanted it, you know, and then we find, you know, I don't know if the community, I mean, I don't know who's gonna replace Jackie, but I mean, I would have been happy to go to Jackie and say,
Jason Bickling. has
if
been
we printed
hired.
these out, is this something when people come, because that's where we had to go in order to get the front part of our house sorted out. But I don't know where this would go to be distributed if people
Community
wanted
development.
it.
I
Seems
thought this,
right.
when we got so far, is great. I mean, if I had
Yeah, I
had
mean, I
this
think
10
maybe a
years
little
ago-
bit of work. I know that Brenda's done a lot of work on it, and
Yeah.
Mary Ann, I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily sure how worthy, you know, more work on it is, simply
Okay.
because
So
they've
then-
done a good job. Donna, maybe you, since, you know, you would bring new eyes, so read it through and see if there's anything that jumps out at you.
I was reading it, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, So
I
if it's,
think there needs to be some stuff in here about color, because there really isn't.
yeah, then add that.
And as I was doing this, working on this before, I thought, because I'm a color specialist,
Mhm.
I thought, that's missing. And anyone right now could be like, I have no idea what to do, I'll paint it like fluorescent purple.
Hot green.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things-
That might be your favorite color, but will that really fit in?
Yeah,
with
what
the
I did
downtown
with our house,
historic district?
what I did with our house, and I think you're absolutely right on, what I did with our house is I went and Googled online 20 colors, and then I went to Williams and I had somebody help me figure it out. If I had known you at that point, I probably would have come to you. But I think a chapter on color, what is appropriate historic colors? Because in fact, people have a real misconception about color. The Victorians painted everything lime green and pink.
Well, and
They
more
didn't
colors
wear it.
than
They didn't just
that.
paint
They were
black.
not worried about color.
So
But
what
a lot of the historic houses, the really old ones, were stucco, and most of them were like white, because that's what they had. So most of those old stucco houses were not painted
Painted
fluorescent
bright
purple.
color. Yeah.
So right now, there exists a historic overlay.
Well, we can take that out. I mean,
There
Yeah.
should still have, we should
this is
We
the
should
historic.
stand our ground on historic overlay and have that area protected.
Right.
Is
Well,
that-
that
is that
may be a separate
designated?
issue then.
It is a separate issue
Yeah,
from what we're
that's
talking
right.
about, yeah.
I guess that was a question, is this
So this is-
historic boundary like designated, or is it something still open for discussion?
I think it's
If we
still open for
wanted
discussion.
it to be bigger?
Um,
Because right now, considering that we have done this historic walking tour all over town, and I think some of our signs and places are outside of these boundaries, so it's like,
Well,
is
the
this,
idea-
well, the
is
thing
this-
the thing that
appropriate?
Commissioner Ward and I discovered was, you can have this as your historic preservation district, right? But take the Jesse Lee area. You can also do another
That was the
historic
plan.
outline.
I think
So it
orig-
doesn't have to be all, it doesn't have to be
You
all in
do it
one
all in one
area.
color.
You do it in layers. So if downtown work, then maybe,
But-
Adams to Jefferson from Third to First.
But I
Because there's a
think-
lot of historic places in that area, maybe that
But
would be
I-
phase two.
But I think that even planning and zoning supports this. I think this is,
Well, maybe we take that as a separate issue.
it is a
designate
separate
down-
issue, for sure.
Designate downtown as a historic district, and we can still work on these and get these in people's hands if they want them.
This is extraordinarily helpful, I think, and I think if you added on to our resources for getting the grants to be able to do this, I mean, I read through it, and I can read it 2 pages stuff. I can read it 2 pages stuff that to me is hugely valuable when I look at a contributing versus a non-contributing and what the purpose of the historic district is. This document in its own self is.
It's real informational.
Hugely helpful.
It's real informational. So,
But okay.
but I think it does need some editing still. I mean, it's not
And
mean, there's-
addition, like color,
Juno, yeah, some
The
chapters.
difference between what I did last and what this looks like right this minute is, you see in here, in some places, each section will say like 7.2, 7.3. Before the document had numbers for every single section, it just, the table of contents, if you click on the table of contents, like 7.2, it would take you to that place in the document. It's like a hot link. And it would work for almost the whole document, except a couple little places that could not be fixed, and it wouldn't go there. So.
I'm amazed it did that considering we cut and pasted.
Well,
Considering
it was
butchering it.
working, some of it was working, but some of it
Hold on
wasn't.
just
So
a
what
second,
Brenda was
please.
doing was taking
Clerk
those
Baloo?
things out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, when the product is finished and it's in
We
a
can do
PDF
that.
format, it's really easy to put that back in
Right.
place, so it links exactly from the table of
That's,
contents.
yeah, 'cause that was, but you know what it
Because
sounds
right
like?
now, we don't have a table of contents, we used to.
Yeah, we probably, but it sounds like that, and I don't know if we need to do something about this at the meeting, but it sounds like we really are kind of stepping forward and getting this ready to go and into the hands of the public
yeah.
and figure out how we're gonna get it distributed versus a historic overlay that, for downtown to work
is
on some
separate.
protection.
Yes.
But that these are not necessarily linked. We can start this now and use the historic downtown maybe as a separate issue.
Sue, let Sue finish.
No, that was, I just was repeating myself.
Can I just be in agreement with me? Can I humor me? Can I just read a page and a half here?
Sure.
Because this resonates. So what you've actually given us, it says, what are design guidelines? Some of the guidelines written specifically for improving historic structures, others apply to non-contributing existing buildings, and still others apply to completely new infill constructions. Why do we have design guidelines? To help establish a common understanding of preservation principles and standards. Retaining the historic character that exists downtown is an important goal for Seward. The historic resources of Seward can be vulnerable to inappropriate alteration and demolition. These resources are key parts of the community's identity, livability, and through heritage tourism and the economy as well. Design guidelines have been written primarily for use by the citizens of Seward and recommended by the Historic Preservation of the City of Seward. The guidelines are also intended for use by property owners making decisions about proposed rehabilitation and new construction projects. They'll be sensitive to the historic character of the district and an individual landmark. That's exactly what we've been saying for the last whatever. This exact document, it even says compliance with design guidelines. Development within the downtown historic district shall comply with all the relevant guidelines. In some cases, there may be conflict among relevant guidelines. This will be determined to a review process to be developed so as not to restrict development or add an unnecessary burden. So we're saying here, we'd like to review it. That's the part we haven't talked about. It's like, if it doesn't have any teeth in it, do we still ask? Does community development, whoever hand it and say, you should have a review? It's not binding, but you should have a review about historic preservation. Then that would give you, not teeth perhaps, but it would give you more than good luck. Because the fact that your house is how your house is, Sue, we're lucky.
Right.
Because you could have done something else.
Well, and the same thing, the house down the street. You know, Matt and Karen's house, he's a FedEx pilot, they're doing the same thing. My neighbor is really interesting. That house is 1918, Bethany's house. And she gave me a box when I was doing research for the walking tour. She gave me a box, and it showed what that property was before the people before her bought that house. It was full of Devil's Club, or and cow parsnip, and the house was literally falling in. They lifted the house, put it on a daylight basement, and that's probably one of the cutest houses on the street. It has a daylight basement. It has a lot of the original features. I went in that house when Bethany gave me a tour, and I covet her floors. I covet them. That's against the 10 Commandments, but I covet them in a big way. And so, again, there's been a lot of people who have lovingly protected these properties. And I would like to see that encouraged. And how we decide to make that happen.
I do like the idea of developing a review process that it's an opportunity for us to look at something and say, we think we could help you, or here's some ideas for you to make this better.
Well, that was what we were going to do with that property.
You have to do this, but more like, let us help you.
Yeah.
You can show before and after pictures of kind of like, look at the whole house, look what it looked like 20 years ago.
Well, that's why, that's what we talked about with the arcade building, where the new property is going in. Those people have the same concept that Harry Hoban had 100 years ago. And they didn't even know. I mean, they haven't
They could call it the new Palace of Love.
The new Palace of Love.
We start getting tired and things start
is that on
getting
YouTube?
interesting here.
Can we have a motion on that? But anyway.
We would be comfortable contacting the new owners and just asking if they would be
I didn't
interested.
keep that packet.
Huh?
I didn't keep the packet.
Does anyone know who they are?
It's online. I mean,
I'm sure
it's online. The PNC package has been sent to us.
I would say
it might
unless
be
one
your-
of us knows, then maybe it would be a good job for our
Send an
chairperson
email.
to just say, we're really interested in helping you if you
Okay.
like our help.
What I would do is
all right.
go online, go online and just say, introduce yourself, I'm the chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission, we're real excited that you bought the property, and we'd like to assist. And I would laugh, because I can't believe that they're actually building exactly what Harry Hoban built there. Maybe they did do some research. Maybe they know a little bit about the property, which, I don't know, but what they had put on that P&Z packet almost was exactly a modern version of the original arcade, which was the premier building in this town. So it might just be worth the email, and then they have the option of responding or not, and then, if they don't respond, we won't interfere.
Seems like a letter would be better than an
Letter,
email.
however you want to do it, I just email
Or
it.
mail them one of these.
That's a good idea, Donna. But now, we're not saying that right now, the way this is ready to be given to community development, to be handed to people who are buying or
Well, I think we probably-
homes. Do we want to add a couple of things, or is
Well,
it?
you wanted to add color.
Well, I think that the formatting, as far as the numbers and table of contents, should be in there before it goes to anybody.
Okay,
And
good.
if nothing else, put it back in like we had, even if not all the links work correctly,
And it
it's
just-
better than having nothing. But it would be better to actually create a table of contents
Well, that's what,
with correct links.
that's what Clerk Blue was saying, though,
Yeah.
that
That
can
could
be
be,
done.
that can all be done at the
As
end.
far as putting something about color, that's something that I wouldn't mind working on, but
Yeah.
it's not like quick, like I'm gonna like whip out this tractor on color and have it done in a couple weeks. It will take some time.
Yeah,
Okay, so
that would
let's-
be great,
do
'cause
we
you're the
have-
Take
expert.
some research.
Okay.
You're the expert, so.
So do we want to give ourselves a timeline of, let's say, let's have this ready to go in 2 months?
Will the people in Increase be already making plans for the building?
Oh, I'm sure they do. It sounds like they were ready to get, I think they're probably planning to break ground in spring.
I mean, we could basically
Just say it's
get this ready to go and put it out
Just
there
say-
and have additions that
Yes.
keep out. 'cause
I
we
think
know we're
that's a
going
good
to.
idea, updates,
And
well,
then,
yes.
and then the color
Yes,
update
yes.
can happen when it's ready,
And so, what,
along with anything else.
but I'm
that-
still looking, there's still some Juneau Electric Light and Power Building. And then you
There-
read some things about an application process, so I still think there's some cleanup that needs to be done on
Well,
this.
every single picture in here, if there was a possible Seward picture that I thought I could go take and put in here, I did. If there wasn't a good example in Seward, that's probably why the picture is still in there from Juneau, because
So
I,
they have a visual.
you know.
And ask a question,
But you guys might have an idea and think, well, maybe this building could work for that.
is there anything stopping us from having a shared, we can keep an original somewhere, but having a shared document online? Because I'd much rather spend a couple hours working on a document with a change made directly in the document than doing a whole lot of back and forth or having a whole lot of meetings. I mean, give me 10 pages to work on and I'll work on them, kind of thing. Unless you just give me 10 pages and I send it to Brenda and Brenda makes the changes. That's an alternate, which she's way good. She probably likes that better, 'cause that'd be more consistent, but,
So for each
I'm
of
not
us to
against
do
us
our.
working together, but
I've looked at this document till I'm blue in the face, so I'm probably the last person that needs to edit it because I've been editing it for 2
yeah,
years.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to have other people fix
happy
my
with that.
document.
Actually, maybe that's a good next step. I have edited this until I'm blue in the
Right.
face too.
But you
So
just
maybe
put the
all the
color.
people that have never seen it before should take a look at it and see if you have comments.
Right, and you do the color, but the point being is that I think it's probably 80% there.
So what if we all look at it and then we do come back and when we do have a working meeting, we take some time to do a read through?
Okay, do a
Yeah.
read through before the
Yeah.
next meeting.
And then maybe do a read through at a meeting together when we're sitting here and say, well, these are the things I thought, page 3, we go through it, page 3 is good. Page 4, no. Page 5, these 2 things, they'll go, yeah, we agree. And then you're done. It'll take a little while, but we have to do our pre-work. I mean,
Right,
we'll
but
read the whole
that'd be
packet,
good,
highlight.
then we can give it for the final, because I'd like to get it out, and in fact, I think that's, it makes it usable. There's some good
I like it.
information
So
in
our
there.
next regular meeting is what, November 4th, because we had to change it from Veterans Day.
Right.
So is it possible to like maybe have a work session next week
Not for
to
me.
do, not for you, okay.
And not for.
Okay, then we'll just,
You can have work session, but I just.
okay, so
My
we're
schedule's
just,
too
so
full.
when we come back on
Yeah.
November 4th for the regular and the work session, we'll go over
I will
this.
have yellow highlighted the heck out of this thing well before that thing, and I'll be ready to discuss in
There you go.
detail at
Okay,
this
so,
meeting.
all right,
No problem.
all right.
Be
Does that
ready to
work
sit
for
right
you,
here and say
Brenda?
page
Does that
1,
work?
page
Yeah.
2, page 3.
I'm
Okay.
happy to take in any changes if you want to send them to me between now and then, or just bring them to the work session. If you send them to me, I'll make sure that I
Okay.
provide them for everybody.
Highlight, scan, and send it to you.
That works for me.
And I do have a question for you, Brenda.
Yeah.
Is community development the appropriate place for this to go?
definitely should engage.
No, that's gonna ask, because,
Well, I think it makes sense to make it
Yes.
available in all the locations that you mentioned.
right.
Yeah.
Because Jackie was very supportive,
Right.
and she's gone, but I would be real happy to call, that, I would step up to the plate, since I've edited this till I can't read it anymore, but I'd be happy to set up a meeting with the community development people to see if they would like to have copies, or what their feelings are on this, would they want it?
If the commission wants, once we get, I can forward this draft out to community development, to the building folks, show it to them, make sure it's marked heavily that it's in draft form, and ask, just make them aware of it and say, November 4th, HP is having a work session, if you want to come and provide input, that's up to you. But
I think that would be super. That gives us the input from all the areas of the city that we want, and make them aware.
Yeah,
And they can tune in or not, but at least they'll be aware.
Yeah.
And because, then we print up a few copies, we have them around, we want them available. So I don't want a new citizen to come in and go to, like Eric and I were to go to community development, and they'll say, draft guidelines? What are you talking about?
so that's like 3 weeks.
Yes.
We're closed on Monday.
Right?
Okay, so no one will be here, and then, yeah.
Do we have to
Can-
do it on the 4th? That's the first Thursday of the month.
Yeah.
I know us pioneers. The reason we had to change the meeting to the 4th is because Veterans Day would be the second Thursday.
What about the Friday instead of Thursday?
I could do Friday. It's not a problem for me.
Because this is Friday today.
Doesn't appear to be a problem.
I would like to make, because 3 of us belong to that, the pioneers, so.
Does not appear to be a problem for me either, at this point.
So then we would make it Friday, November 5th?
Yes.
Would that be all right, Brenda, with you?
Yeah, of course, yep.
Okay.
All right, now we can make pioneers. We didn't like that. We talked about that. We didn't like that.
Yeah, because I was thinking, Pioneers.
You should.
Really?
You
I
should.
was thinking of it because I've been here 20 years.
You have been. Eric joined.
Yeah, he was cute.
He was so cute.
Because I'm not a member of enough things, I need more.
Yeah, you don't have enough to do, right, Marion? Okay, so on the 5th, we will then bring our edits and updates. And like I said, I'm happy to sit down and meet with anybody who wants to meet. But because now I have actually something to say. I'd like to introduce you to our guidelines, and I'd like to give, when we get them printed, I'll give you some available packets so that if you're contacted, you know what they are. And I think building people should have them. The community development people, that's where Eric and I started.
Definitely.
That's where
community
Eric and I
development.
started, so,
Yeah.
with Donna.
Yeah. And I think that I inserted something in here about color, like a little teaser for the future somewhere there, because when I was doing it, I was like, there needs to be something about color. in
Right.
there.
And I,
So you're
I'll have
still
to
gonna,
find-
you're
I'll have to
still
find
gonna
where
do
it
that
is.
though, right?
Right.
You're
Still
gonna work
gonna-
on
the color
thing?
chapter.
To
Yes,
go into
I-
the one that we have
Paragraph.
available?
I'm going to work on that. One of the things that I kind of like to do is, I have a spectrometer. I can actually measure color. For example, if there's a historic building that had a sample of something that was from original, I could actually measure that color and find out what is the closest match to, like, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, whatever. So part of that thing, why I was saying would take a while, would be, are there people out there that have some samples of things that are original that I can measure? I can find things online, like there's been histories for colors for Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, out there for different
Would it
decades
measure
and
wallpaper?
things.
Would it
But that
measure-
doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect for Seward.
Right.
Would that measure like a faded wallpaper?
I think that, if you had wallpaper that was from,
I have Clara Mantley's original wallpaper.
time period was, it shows what the styles were and the colors that people were using for a variety of things, so it would be some good information.
Clara's original wallpaper was nailed to the shiplap. I have a bucket full of it.
Okay, well, I would
It's
like
like a
to see
fabric.
that.
Like a fabric, down in my basement. I haven't looked at it for a
So
while.
I could stop in Brown
So
and
give them some
Hawkins and
samples.
ask them, hey, do you have any places that have not ever been, changed, that is something I could measure and just see kind of what they, because that's some of the earliest buildings. And yours is a little bit later. but-
Yeah, mine would be 1920.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
yeah. But
Okay,
yes,
so-
I will work on it.
so at this point, are we, I mean,
People
we're
need
done
to-
with this?
Yeah, people need
You
to
said that
read,
we're personally gonna work on it between now and when we come together on the
Right.
5th.
and then
right?
hopefully then we can get it ready for use.
Okay, so
Thank you.
are we allowed to call an end to this work session and get ready to go into the regular meeting? Or do we have more things that we didn't,
Nope.
anybody wanted to cover?
I think we're good.
Okay, we're going to adjourn the work session at 7:26.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
A little wee break.
Okay.
Oh, whoops.
That's okay. Turn the mics off.
This is the regular meeting of the Seward Historic Preservation Commission. We are beginning at 7:33. All right, call to order. Oh, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can you do roll, please?
Yes, tonight's roll call, LeBrecq,
Here.
Ward,
Here?
Walker,
Here.
Pemberton is absent, Benoit,
Here.
and Chair Cease.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay. Do we have any citizen comments?
I don't believe so. No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we need to do the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I move that we approve the agenda and consent agenda.
I second that. Thank you. Any discussion?
Nope.
All right,
Calling for the vote on the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. Ward,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
LeBrecq,
Yes.
Benoit,
Yes.
and Chair Cease.
yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on tonight's consent agenda are the September 9th, 2021 Historic Preservation Commission meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do we have any special orders, presentations, or reports? I believe no. City Administration report. Ms. Bailey? No? Thank you for being here. All right, I do have a chair report. To begin with, I would like to welcome Ms. Donna Walker to our commission and give her great thanks for being willing to serve with us. She is a great resource for history in that she's lived here a long time, and her mother lived here and her grandmother lived here. All right, so I'm happy to report that all of the historic walking tour plaques have been installed and they look fantastic. Commissioner LeBrecq is researching the attachment of the signs for the downtown businesses to make sure that we don't violate any relative historic value of a given building. And he'll have an opportunity to take that further. Commissioner Benoit has coordinated a personalized historic walking tour per Seaview's request. For anyone wishing to join or help, the dates are Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th, this weekend. And there's a schedule that's included in here. I also have an extra one that if you wanted to have copies made to be posted, we could. Okay, on Monday night's council meeting, I did petition the council for a return to the opportunity to use Zoom for our meetings. Okay, Commissioner Ward and I met to discuss the historic overlay project. We had a good discussion, and I hope that as a commission we will carry this project forward with as much vim and vigor as we expressed in our 2021 CLG project. As the chair of this committee, I could not be prouder to serve our community with each of you. On a sad note, Deputy Clerk Jessica Stollard has resigned. For the sake of Brenda and Karen, I hope that we can be patient with them due to their increased workloads. I am, like you, very grateful for their stepping up to clerk for us until a new clerk can be hired and trained. And with all this said, let's get on with the meeting. The following, so we pretty much went over this already, you know, what follows below, so that's it's not necessary to repeat that. So coming back over to our agenda, why don't we have Commissioner Benoit do a review for the Facebook page on page 5, a paid Facebook report.
Okay, let's see, we had a few less posts go out the last month or so, just because the deputy clerk was out of the office. She's the one that takes the posts and I give her and puts them out there. So we had a few less out than expected, but just looking at the statistics from July 14th to October 1st, in general, you can see our reach is between 70 and like 2,400 people, which surprised me. It's like, really? That's a lot of people. And we got some interesting statistics this time. 2/3 of our audience is women. And we have people checking out our page that are coming from all over the Kenai Peninsula, like all over Alaska, including we had somebody from St. Lawrence Island in the Bering Sea.
Cool.
And it's like, seriously, so people are interested all over about what's happening, so I thought that was super cool. During that period, we got 30 new followers, which is good. It seems like the posts that are most engaging for people are like, what's happening with the walking tour? And I've got the schedule, I've got posts basically scheduled out the order all the way through, I think almost at this point, the end of January.
Oh,
For a while there, I was putting dates like, put this out on this week, on this, time period, but what happens is, things change, people are out of the office, they don't go out, something happens, whatever. So I decided I'm just gonna take all the dates off and just go, here's the order. We'll add more if there's an event or different things happening, but otherwise it's gonna happen in this order, so I have to keep revising these dates constantly. So
that makes sense.
what's happening with that. And in February, when I start the next batch, I'm still continuing with this theme of like amazing women of Seward. So I'm just picking the signs that have women highlighted on the sign, and I'll do all of those first, and then we'll move on to the rest of them. And I did start, I had mentioned before about, I thought it'd be super cool to like talk to some of these people that have signs and do some interviews with them and maybe do some videos about, what they, maybe things they've discovered when they bought this historic house, they're remodeling, or why they decided to be on the walking tour, just things like that. I actually started with Susie White and did a little video of her outside with her sign, and then walked around inside and took some pictures, and Doug White from the Brownell House gave me a little tour. I have some pictures but no video, so I've started kind of on that. And neat, well, those things will get inserted at some point. But
Good.
so far that people
Good
have been
idea.
like super excited and they want to model with their sign and tell me all about it. So I'm like, yes, the more information we have, the better, and we'd love to share it. So it's all good.
One of the things that, what's her name, Michelle at Resurrect Art? Is that Michelle? What she
Michelle.
said, that most of the time people would come in and ask their staff a lot of questions about the building and things like that. That's kind of cut back because they're all stopping and reading the sign
Yeah, so sure.
as they go in the buildings. And then they come in, real excited about the building. But yeah, she commented people are really checking out the sign.
Yeah, as I walk, I put in my 10,000 steps per day. So I'm walking around town all the time. Every time I see somebody reading a sign, I walk up and I go, what do you think about that sign? And then, everyone is really happy and excited about it. As a matter of fact, I ran into somebody on my way down tonight. They're like, oh my God, that's so cool. So I've never heard somebody say, well, I think that sign is awful, or, nothing negative. All the people are like excited, and they're interested in the history, and they're surprised at the things they're learning. So I think that's really neat. So I'm looking forward to doing the historic tours tomorrow, because then you get to see people's reaction when they learn these things firsthand. But I'm digressing from the Facebook page, but that's what's happening with that.
Okay. Well, on my agenda, it says that you're also going to update us on the CLG. Before we do that, would you mind if I ask Commissioner LeBrecq to fill us in on where we're at with the signs? Because he's been working diligently to get them onto the business buildings.
Thank you. So I worked with Austin Chapman today, and we went and installed signs. So we started off by doing Mount Marathon Apartments. We got that one done, and then we did Railroad Depot, Homebrew Alley, Generations. So if you look at the Yeti now, or Bigfoot or whatever that is, has clothes on. And we did the Brown and Hawkins, and the thank you signs up. The new thank you sign came in, I picked it up, and Austin put it up. So we still have remaining Orlander and Seabean and Van Gilder. Those are the only three that are left. So I ran into a little problem today in that the sign bases, which are really cool, they were custom made for us, are just off by just 1/4 of an inch. So some of the three of the signs, I literally can't find them in. So I'm going to take them and have them cut appropriately. I'm not going to do it, but I'll take them to the sign company and have them just shaved a little bit so that they will fit. The other thing that was interesting, this is a technicality, but you're going to notice when you see some of the frames that they do not match up on the corner. And that is specifically because of the fact that those signs don't fit 100% exactly once you bolt them to the wall. They're fine for now, they're great for the tour, but yes, I am going to come back and I'm going to remove them. I'm going to have them all shaved by 1/8 of an inch or whatever. Put them back in and then they'll bolt up. The way that the sign bases work is it's 3 sides like this and then a piece of metal that comes off with 2 screws and you slide the sign in. But this couple of signs don't fit exactly well. I mean, you would have laughed at us. It was like Keystone Cops because you have to take 2 screws out, but they're impossible to take out because when they built them, they put a beautiful black powder coat all over the whole thing, but they unfortunately did that after they put the screws in it.
Oh.
So there was like, we were putting this Allen wrench in and we were having to do all kinds of things to get the screws out. So it took us a lot longer than we thought. But the point of the matter is that you'll notice there's a couple places the corner will match up. I'll come back, I'll fix them, but you won't even notice. Your people won't notice it because they will just say, wow, that looks great. So yeah, so we only have 3 left. I'll get those signs fixed, get those up shortly, and then every single sign will be up. All the ones that are in the ground are in the ground, and all the ones in the building. And the other piece of that was that the 3 that are left, or well, 2 of the 3 that are left, Van Gilder and Seabean, are on stucco surfaces, and neither of us feel comfortable until we have the right screws to do that, and until the owners are there with us when we do it, because it's just, you just have in your mind, we had enough difficulties today just drilling holes and things already. You just get a thing in your mind of you poke a hole in this stucco and half the building falls down, and then you're like, so we're going to do it, but we're going to do a little bit more research for those. The Orlander will go up as soon as I get the sign that will actually fit in this. Orlander's no big deal because that's a wood structure. So that'll be the first one. So it'll be a little bit before we get the other ones up, but I think you guys will be excited. It looks great.
We already are excited.
Austin was awesome. And so yeah, so it's exciting. So you can show everything up in the tour, but 3 signs. Oh, I'm going to take those 3 signs tomorrow morning, and I'm going to take the base and just put the sign on the front of it and put them kind of on the ground right next to where they're going to go. So every one of your signs will be out tomorrow when you go do your tour. It's just 3 of them will look like, wow, they're sitting in the base, and someone's going to screw them up there soon. But every sign will be out.
Thank you, Commissioner
Okay.
LeBrecq.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your willingness to come back and make sure you get them
Right.
perfect.
It's all good. We had some fun today, and then the only other thing I have to do is, now that that's been done, is process the bill and just make sure I got a couple bills done. And a final report, all of our requirements have been met with the state, and the state has already paid the city in its entirety full $24,000. However, we're still gonna do a cleanup final report.
Okay, great. And just one comment that I'll make. You won't be able to meet with the Seaveen owners until next summer, because they're gone for the winter.
Well, I'm not saying that we won't do it, it's just,
Okay,
we'll probably
but
do,
with their permission, I
we'll probably
understand.
find a derelict building somewhere where we can drill in some stuff, and no, I don't know, I'm just saying, we gotta do something. No, we're gonna get the appropriate drill bit and the appropriate material so that we're confident not taking the wood screws very easy today and going into a historic building. It's all fun until you actually start doing it, and it's a little stressful that you're actually drilling into somebody's building, so.
Oh, we
That's
appreciate your hands-on.
Yeah, go check out Bigfoot, it's kind of funny.
You put clothes on.
Well, we put a sign right over his middle section, because that's where the guy said to put it, so that's what we did.
The walking tour sign.
That's where he wanted it, that's where he put it. It looks good.
Okay. Good.
We didn't literally put clothes. Now, see, these things get recorded, and that's how rumors get started.
Commissioner Benoit, would you like to take us into your part of the CLG?
Sure. As we basically are getting things up, we've been putting posts out on Facebook to kind of keep people up to date on what's happening. Plus, there's been a thread where actually quite a few people have been like commenting about the signs and what they think of them and asking about their signs, stuff like that. So I have been posting a few pictures, like, you know, like this one with Doug White and stuff like that. So it's kind of an ongoing thread where I'm happy people are engaged in talking about what's happening. As far as the maps, we got a box of 2,500 maps, and I've like been all over town, like handing stacks out to the big hotels, different, you know, businesses, the Sea Life Center, the library, the museum, the city, all over. Not every single property owner who has a sign has gotten them, but as I've been seeing people, when, you know, walking around carrying these maps, I've given some out, and then we'll have some tomorrow and this weekend for the tours. I still have some left, which I'm just carrying around in my car. But for sure, before next summer, we'll have to order the other 2,500 and get them out to everybody. And we'll be lucky, I think, if they last through the tourist season. Because, for example, I talked to Kyle, who kind of manages the gate thing. Like, let me know when you need more. And he's like, yeah, well, these will be okay for now, but at the beginning of the next season, they'll need.
And those have been paid for, the other 25.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what's happening. We just had an update on the signs. I just posted some pictures in this report, not all, so you can kind of see what they look like. And
On page 19, the Quonset hut, so that's inside the
That's-
fence?
yes,
Can you read it standing outside the fence?
no, but right there, the fence ends, so you can just like make the corner and stand right there.
Okay,
We had to do snow plowing and stuff, it would have been in a bad spot.
sure, sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we, you know, talked to Deborah Hoffmeister about that.
So
Where the
thrilling.
possibilities are. And that's like, yeah, it's easy to just walk right there and see it, and it's totally fine.
This is fantastic. I mean, it's just so satisfying, you know, to hear and see the positive,
Yeah.
you know,
Super
results
positive.
and the happy people and the interested parties. I mean, it's really neat. We've done
I
a good
think
job,
so.
you guys, working together.
I think so, and I feel like all the people are happy. The next thing was community presentations. As you know, the Sewer Prevention Coalition created their Wellness Week. which has been going on all week, they asked me to lead these tours for Wellness Week, which I thought was great that they knew about our walking tour and are associating it as something healthy and positive for people in the community to do. So Sue and I are going to be leading those tours the next 2 days. Tongi's gonna come tomorrow morning and help, and you're coming also, I
To
think
set
you're gonna
up,
help with the
tear down,
setup and
set up,
stuff.
and tear down.
And Donna, I did go and I attended a meeting of the Resurrection Bay Historical Society and told people about it, their last meeting. And so Donna, as a member of that, is volunteering to help us a
And
little bit.
Art?
And
Art?
also Art.
Art McMahon.
And I also have been
Great.
trying to get Rotary volunteers, so Matt Cope, I believe is his last name, is coming to help. I think he's coming tomorrow afternoon. So we have Rotary, Resurrection Bay, our commission.
Our
And
partners.
I was talking through email with Doug Capra. He's going to come tomorrow with his wife and walk around for part of it. So I figured, I sent messages out to all of our partners because I thought, hey, if you want to come along, people may have questions. Maybe they'll know answers that I don't know, and they can contribute to that conversation. So
Good job.
that is what's happening with that. I also alerted at least the people that I've been working with their signs to say, come on out and go on the tour. And
See
if
the
you
other
can,
signs.
just heads up that we might be stopping by to look at your sign. So that's what's happening with that. Other community presentations, I am gonna be doing, on November 2nd, I'm gonna do a presentation for Rotary. I've done one before that was just a little quick summary, but I'm gonna do a longer one that talks about the history of each of the signs. As far as what's happening tomorrow, I just wanted to point out, on these posters that I made, I put on here that the time in the afternoon is 12:30 to 3, yet our schedule with the details says 1 to 3. So, I'm sure that was my mistake, because somehow I wrote the wrong time on the posters. But what we're planning on doing is, we'll be here, or we'll be at the library at 12:30. And we'll be showing the video, and people can come in and have coffee, but we will wait to go until 1 o'clock, so that anyone who saw the other, the stuff that the Sewer Prevention Coalition put out that says 1 o'clock, won't show up and we'll be gone already. So we'll just
We'll be
have
flexible.
coffee, watch videos, answer questions, and just wait until 1. So anyone who's listening to this, if you want to wait till 1 to show up, that's fine. If you want to come at 12:30, that's fine too.
Great.
So I just wanted to, make you aware of that. And I think that's all of the updates on that. The tours are set up so that in the morning, I'll take people out, like on 6th and Blaine, and Sue will take people out. I forget, you have it listed in here. And then the
And we flip
afternoon,
it.
we'll each do a different thing, because I have the tour broken up into 4 different sections, so that it wouldn't be too long for everyone to do. So, say for example, somebody wants to see the whole tour. They could come tomorrow and go with me in the morning, and then they could go with me in the afternoon, and then they could come Sunday, and they could go with Sue in the morning, and with Sue in the afternoon, and then we'll get to see the whole thing. If they just want to focus on, like, I just want to see 4th Avenue, they can come either day and go out and just look at that one thing. And if somebody wants to come, they're like, I really want to see it, but I really can't walk that far, they can come and drive around their car. We'll have 2 groups, so we'll talk about it before we go, and we'll tell them this is where we're going to go, and they can follow us in the car. Or, if it's really bad weather, we could all go in the car and take, carpool and take people around. The second option is, if people want to, I'm bringing this PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to do for Rotary. is details of the whole thing, all the signs. So say it's like totally nasty, nobody wants to go in the car, nobody wants to walk, we can sit around, drink coffee, do a PowerPoint. But the goal is wellness, walking around, so that's
Well,
not
hoping
our
the weather
first
cooperates.
choice, it's our last choice.
You can do this in the spring too, in the summer.
If people want to do that, we can,
When it's nice.
maybe there's something we can do as a Historic Preservation Commission to do these tours again. That's, not related to Wellness Week, but just something we can come up with and work with the library and see
There-
if we can make it happen.
The actual tour is designed to be, started wherever you want to choose, and that's why we have the tour maps available for people that are visiting, and then they could go to where they want to go. They can be on that free bus ride and get off wherever they want and then get back on wherever they want it.
Yeah.
We can scan it with their phone, they can
Yeah,
get it
got-
online.
yeah.
You can scan it.
Yeah,
She
because I
put
think
in-
if somebody really wanted to walk the whole thing and actually read every sign and really, it would probably take them, half a day, 4 or 5 hours. I'm just guessing, I haven't
Yeah.
tried it myself. But if you're really gonna do that, it's gonna take some time. You can't just work through the whole 26 signs in an hour and walk all around. But, yeah. But it's a good thing if you're coming for the day, take the day and do that and have some little stops and,
Yeah, if it
stop
was
and
nice and sunny and
have some
warm out.
coffee and get some ice cream and then go see the rest of them, Yeah, on a beautiful sunny day. So I believe that's everything I had.
Until we get to the potential candidates for the Historic Register of Seward Houses and Sites. That was submitted by you, is that true?
Yes,
Okay. Would you like to continue in that?
sure.
That's on page 32. Thank you, Commissioner Benoit.
Sure. So this was, at our last meeting, we had talked about that it could be something that we could do in the future, is getting those little plaques made for the Historic Register of Seward Houses and Sites. And so I thought, well, the first step is for example, we just did this walking tour, we did all this research, we have said that these houses were historic enough to have something important about them, enough that we wanted to do a sign out front. They should be at least considered to have a plaque. And so I looked at the list that Brenda sent out, all the things that are currently on there, and I thought, what things have we just done on our walking tour that are not on there?
the tour.
And so I added that to the list. Plus, I noticed that this list came from the 2017 Historic Preservation Plan. And in the notes on that, it had also noted 2 places that should be considered, which were, I think, the Stewart and the Cameron houses. So just because that note was
Okay.
there from before, I thought, well, I'll just put those on there. There may be more, but I thought the first step would be for us to talk and go, what do we think? Are these good places to consider? And then if so, the next step would be, if we think they're all great, we should talk to those property owners that have signs, for example, go, would you like a plaque? Because we can nominate it and do all that, but if they don't want a plaque on their house, there's no point in doing it.
Right, but now that's going to require another CLG.
To do,
Right,
the
the
little
one-
plaques.
They're pretty expensive.
I'm sorry.
I don't know where they got, who paid for them the first time? That's a good question.
Madam Clerk?
So 2 things. One, the plaques, I have a few of them in my office that were given to me. In legislative history, I discovered they were actually ordered, 25 of them in bulk decades ago.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know what the current cost is on them. I have no idea, I have no way to know what that cost at that time, and it wouldn't be relevant anymore.
Anyway,
But
yeah.
I have a sample of those, I have several of them, so I will get a new cost estimate for those so that we know what we're dealing with. And also, Commissioner Benoit mentioned, I had sent out the pages of an extract from the historic plan. And then after that, I went through legislative history, one by one, and I compared it with the plaque that's in the hallway out here that lists all those locations. They're engraved out there.
Nope. I haven't seen
And
it.
I looked everything up on legislative history, so if you look at page 34 and 35, that is through legislative history, all the things that are documented are on the Seward Register. And if you go back to the historic plan, there are names missing from that historic plan that have already come
Okay.
to this commission and to council and been certified as a historic.
So there's things on this list
So-
that are more inclusive than what was that,
That's right.
that other thing?
Stewart and Cameron are ready. They're
Are-
already on the list.
They're on there.
Yep, they
Okay.
were
Yep, there
in
they
the
are.
Holland House. Those are the three that have already been designated Seward Historic locations.
In
Whether
Holland-
they have a plaque or
Holland?
not, I don't know.
But we need to resolve that,
We
make
would
sure it all
have to-
matches.
Literally go and look and make sure that people have a plaque in all these locations. But there was a discrepancy, and then the other ones that are missing, Johnston, there's a Johnston building or house. The Iditarod Trail was on the register, the Jesse Lee Home, and the Seward Commercial Company.
That's
so-
Generation.
That's-
No, that's
That's
CB.
That's CB.
CB.
Which is, I think
Yeah,
I
that's
put that
CB.
on this list.
So that's today is CB.
Yeah.
And it's covered.
So that is also on the register, so
Is it on the register?
it's already been, yeah. That was done in 1998.
Great research.
Yes, thank you so much, Clerk, Madam Clerk.
Looking ahead.
This is great.
When you update the historic plan, then this will be a more thorough list of.
Yeah, they need to match.
Right.
Okay, so basically, and I guess the thing is we need to go check and go, okay, so they might be on this list, but do they have a plaque?
Well, that'd be the next
Right.
step.
No. Like on the
So
sewer
you're,
commercial company.
when you
I
say
don't
plaque,
think
you're
it's-
referring to the black and brass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not talking about what we've just done around town?
No.
Okay.
No.
Those little.
All right,
Yeah, because those things aren't that expensive. You'd have to get some and they'd have to be engraved.
They're,
Yeah,
you
they're
can get
nice.
them online, they're 125, 150 bucks, maybe 200,
so,
because it's a real common thing around the country that people do.
Plaques on old houses.
Do you want me to go get it? So you
Oh,
can see
that's
it?
cool.
no,
No,
Okay.
I
You
think
mean
it's okay.
physically get it upstairs?
yeah, you don't have to.
I
We
think
were shown that by Janelle. She brought one down.
Anyway, the bottom line is, we talked about it last time, I figured, well, I got all the information from all the signs we just did, it would be easy for me to compare this to this and make a list, which is what I did. And of course, that opened the door to go, oh, but then nothing matches up and we're missing things and all that, so
Well,
that's
this
good
is
to
part of
know
what
for
we
the.
do is clean it up.
Yeah,
Clean
it's
it
good
up.
to know for the update,
Yes.
but, yeah.
Are you referring to the inventory list?
No, I was
Making sure that
talking-
we're,
But that should match too.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that list doesn't necessarily say anything about these plaques.
No.
No,
that's
it
But
doesn't.
the-
No,
the
it
back
doesn't.
of the 2017 plan obviously needs to be updated, or, you know, when we do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's all I had on that, and,
Okay. Moving on. There is an opportunity for attending an annual local government conference, which is training. And any of us can go except me because I work. So, I don't know if you've looked through this or not. I think, I definitely know that in our budget, we do have money for training because we haven't done that. We didn't do it last year either. So. We probably, in our budget, we could probably afford 2. Brenda, Madam Clerk,
I think 3.
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know if the commission is gonna be interested in this.
Yeah, I was reading that.
Yeah.
If you don't think it's gonna.
I don't know
Draw
that
your
it's,
attention to the newly elected officials training, that's virtual, so it's free. So we've got some people already here that are gonna be attending that, it's for 2 days. And it's totally
the
free.
virtual free one?
Yeah, so you could pop in, pop out. I don't have the agenda for that yet, but I will get it and share it.
Yeah, that looks like
So-
more appropriate.
We're already signing up for that, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, because I don't know that this particular conference would be worth the kind of money that it would cost,
Yeah. It's not
you know,
just
for what we,
focus.
yeah. But I appreciate you putting it in here and letting us know.
But the other one might be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the virtual one.
right. Okay. Happy to share that with it.
Okay,
37.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay. I don't know, Madam Clerk, if this is the right time to add this, but I would like to have Jesse Lee listed again, and I would like the SS, what's the submarine name?
Alaska,
Alaska.
USS
Yes,
Alaska.
USS Alaska submarine, I'd like both of those added. Do we put those under new business, or are we going to put them under our
I
reports?
don't understand. That is, where? So what?
Okay. So we did have Jesse Lee under special orders, presentations, and reports for a long time, and we took it off because it was demolished, and there wasn't anything that we could do. But now we know that it's, with planning and zoning, they have a plan, but they don't have the memorial portion of it that we had talked about. So I think we put it back under reports, and same with this USS Alaska submarine. Those are 2 things that we want to make sure that we're involved with. Is that where you want me to, is that appropriate? You put it under the reports?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that if that's what you want. And, okay,
Okay, but are we moving
For
on
the
to number
next
4?
agenda.
Yeah, for the next agenda.
yeah,
Number 4.
okay.
We need it, that's something we probably need to address. Develop a plan to update the historic preservation plan.
Well, I think that's what we're doing with the overlay. We're doing chapter 8 of it, aren't we?
We're doing, that's part of chapter 8, is that the only thing that needs to happen with it?
Well, I think,
Isn't there an inventory as well?
yeah,
Okay.
that's an annual thing that's supposed to be happening, but it hasn't happened yet. Mary Ann came up with a very good idea and said, well, with all the work that we've done on the CLG, we should come out with more information to update that list.
Which I said that I would try, I did start working on. I haven't done anything on it yet,
Okay.
but I have notes.
I was just going to say, I mean, chapter 8 was future planning, and the historic overlay, you're absolutely correct, was one of those. What else, I haven't looked at chapter 8 for, you know, those bullet points, what else is in there? That may be something we want to look at
Yes.
as part of the updating. Chapter
Yes.
8, you're absolutely correct, chapter 8, we wouldn't change really anything else within the report itself, but chapter 8 was future planning, those future recommendations.
But
So I
the
think
back
we might,
appendices with all the list of historical sites, that was one thing we're saying needs to be updated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And also, it sounds like there's other things, like the list of things on this historic sites obviously was wrong.
but do we need to write like an addendum and then slide it in and just date it, 2021?
Yeah. I
Look
think-
at chapter 8 and then just address it.
Yes, like, can't we add this whole thing as an addendum?
Well, we could.
Once we get it cleaned up and
Yeah.
we're ready to give it to community development and.
Yes,
the
but I
fire
thought there was a
station
whole
and-
list of bullet points. I don't remember, this was only one of,
Yes,
4
I
or
know,
5.
but we can't take on the entire thing at the same time. We can only do parts, right?
Well, I just look
So
and
this
see
is
what we.
one part.
I was gonna say, do we even know what those are?
Okay, well,
That might be something to look at.
Sure,
Before we
take a
say
look
we
at it.
can't do it, let's look at what we say
well,
we
no, I'm
can't
not
do.
saying we can't do it. I'm just, you know,
The overlay was one bullet point.
yes. And that is something that we hopefully will accomplish.
So perhaps in the next agenda, we just have chapter 8, it's just a single page, from what I remember of the 2017 plan. Chapter 8 is just a single page, or at least have that
Okay,
page, so we can look at it.
sure.
We're updating
We can
something we
also
don't
on our
know.
own be looking at the plan.
The only copy I have doesn't have chapter 8.
We're creating work for ourselves.
I
Even
know
if we
it.
don't even if
I
we don't
know
know if
it.
there's any work to be done.
I know it.
There's some good stuff in there though, including.
But we don't have to do anything with it, we just, all I'm suggesting is that we, before we say, I
I'm
did
agreeing
bullet
with
point
you.
number 1. What else is in there?
I'm agreeing with
Okay, that's all I'm saying, and if we look at it and say we can't do it, that's fine too, but I
Okay,
think we need to know what's in there.
okay. You can do that for the next agenda, but the next project, I mean, the next time we meet, we're dealing with that.
Yeah,
Right,
and that's
we're
fine,
redlining.
that's in the work session.
Yes. But then it has to be voted in during the regular session.
Yeah, all it says is develop a plan to update the 20, so develop a plan.
Yes, 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 yes.
So,
Yeah, you and I put that together last fall.
and so I'm suggesting that but to develop a plan, we need to know what's in the plan, in this
Very,
2017.
very good point.
So I would suggest is have it again on the
Commissioner Warren.
agenda.
Right
and-
on,
And put chapter 8 in there so we can take a look at that.
okay,
That's all I'm saying.
okay. Madam Clerk, did you,
Got it?
got it? Great. Okay, so, moving on, are we all right to move on? Okay, now we move into our priorities and a schedule, and I kind of went through here. Again, I think we're doing really good, you guys. I think we've accomplished a lot of what we set out to accomplish. One of the things that I did want to comment on, the goal of the joint work sessions with planning and zoning, which were scheduled by Jackie. I don't know where we stand with that. And the way that the 2 meetings that we did have with planning and zoning went, which was not very productive. And if we're only going to put out, this, what are we calling this? The design standards and guidelines as an informative packet, I don't think we need to have these meetings with planning and zoning.
We already gave them a copy of it once
Yeah.
and they didn't look at it.
No, they did twice.
No. Well,
Right.
and these priorities are what we're going to be reporting to city council. And so we
Yes.
just say that. Just what you just said, that's our report.
Okay,
I think that's,
Yes.
exactly what you just said.
yeah,
The Historic Preservation Commission was created by planning and zoning way back when to address us taking care of what we're taking care of today because they felt like it wasn't their purvey. And that's exactly what we're doing. So you don't need to, in my opinion, I agree with you. I don't think you need to refer it back up to planning and zoning because that was the whole purpose of our organization was created, was to take care of what we're doing right now.
great. Okay, and then, let's see, here in the, where do we have it? Oh, maybe it's here. So in October, we're supposed to brainstorm 2022 projects,
Which we've done.
which we're doing really, because
We
all
are-
of this is
yeah.
gonna
Well, we've
come to
got
fruition.
the USS Alaska, we've got
Yes.
Jesse Lee,
Yep.
so we've already
And we've
done
got this, I mean, we've got this great plan.
And what I would suggest, because this worked last year, is that as the chair and the vice chair, you and I, we can go through this and bring something so that the commission can, we need to make the report, we need to do that, and then bring it to the commission either next month or December. When is it? We have to report to city council and we want our
In
priority.
February, don't we?
Just annually. So
I believe we did in February last year, but yeah, if we had it ready December and we could, approve it at the
And I
commission.
think that's probably something, you and I did it in a couple of hours, and I think it gives the commission something to look at.
Yeah,
And edit. And then, once our priorities are done, and we can also do the report to council, and then, so the 2022 priorities are done, and we report to council in January, February, we're done.
Yeah,
And I think, but they need something
when-
to work from, and I'm happy to do that with you, because you and I did this last year, and it won't take us real long.
no, it won't, because we've got a nice footprint to go by. One thing I did notice though was that I think in December, we put out the nominating for the Historic Preservation Award. This year we gave out 2, but we extended it to April. And I think, you know, you put out your notice in December and people are slow. That's why we ended up extending it to April. So I would like to suggest that we keep it as April. And then in May, that's the month that the award is actually given, which is National Historic Preservation Month.
So keep it just like this, what it says here.
Yeah.
Review and approve HP awards proclamation in May.
Well, but we would have to have, so in April would be the deadline for the nomination,
Right,
so that we could give the award in May.
right. Isn't that what this says?
Well,
Under April 8th?
let's see, April, so I'm already in December.
Well, I'm just looking at, this should have been a reflection of.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's
So just-
exactly what I'm saying.
Right,
Yes.
so leave it just like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Because when we developed this, we knew we'd be making modifications.
yes,
It'd take a couple of uses to clean it up, and
Yep.
there's one right there.
yeah.
Perfect, works for me. So I think what we need to do is you and I need to get together and then just,
Yeah, sounds good to me. English tea?
and then present it at the meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Any other comments on our priorities list and schedule? Okay. All right, so we've already changed our November meeting to the 5th. Work session and regular meeting, 6:15 to no later than 9 p.m. We're doing good.
Second that.
We're doing good.
I just first and seconded that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, yeah. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to suggest or feels that we overlooked?
Locked up.
I do believe we got a lot done. Because we're just such a great commission. All dedicated professionals.
Enthusiastic, energetic.
Commission comments? Do you wanna-
Yes. Any comments from the commissioners?
I'm just looking forward to doing the tours tomorrow with you guys and having a chance to share what we've been doing with the public and give them an opportunity to get excited about Seward's history. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope people will come and enjoy. If you don't know anything about the history, this is the perfect time. You'll probably be amazed at just how fascinating Seward's history is, which I found out because I didn't know anything about the history until I got in this commission and started working on these signs. So, yeah, you should come out and check it out. It'll be a good time.
Commissioner Ward?
I amen that, and also would like to thank Brenda for filling in and helping us out.
Oh, yes.
She's got a lot of load on her, so we appreciate you. And yes, come out for the tours. Check out the sign.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Breck?
You got a lot done, and looking forward to tomorrow morning. I'll be joining tomorrow morning, and I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be exciting. I appreciate
Same as
everybody.
he said.
Same as he said. Well, thank you, Commissioner Walker. And again, Commissioner Walker, thank you for volunteering. Looking forward to your addition, which I know is going to be remarkable. Because it'll come right from your brain, because you know.
Oh, yeah.
And for administration, thank you so much for coming, Miss Slayer.
Sailor.
Sailor. Why can I not get that straight? Living in Seward.
You guys were neighbors.
Oh, I am so sorry. I know it is. Well, I know her by Bailey, and I know I shouldn't have addressed her that way, so I am so sorry.
It's fine.
And
I know, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for every one of you for all the hard work that you have put out and are putting out. And Madam Clerk, I am super appreciative of you, very, very much. Thank you for the extra work that you took on a volunteering basis. Thank you.
She's got a long.
I mean, really, over and above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 8:25 p.m.
There you go.